Hi everybody, my name's Dave. Thanks for joining me, and today we're going to do a video on auxiliary battery systems. This is based on the fact that I now only get a couple of days off a week, and I'm struggling for content. So with my new job, I'm basing it on the fact that what most people struggle with. I'm going to do a report on auxiliary battery systems, how they work, how you include solar, how you can get away with nothing, if you wish. How to connect a DC to DC battery system with solar input. Why do you need that? Well, the answer is that you don't. Unless you want to power and run a fridge and charge other items, etc. If you want to run a fridge, you still don't need these things. There's nothing to stop you charging up an AGM battery, connecting a fridge and running it, and if you're careful, you might get 5 days out of it. As I said to a customer at work as he suggested doing exactly that, I told him that is correct and you can do that. However, once your battery dies, your fridge is off until you charge it again. So if you're 4 days into a 7-day trip and your battery dies, your fridge is gone for the last 3 days until you go home and charge it. So I got a note in there about AGM batteries. So AGM stands for absorbed glass mat. They have lead. Lead and acid, but the acid is absorbed into a glass mat, so it won't slop about. It's not like a flooded lead acid battery. These are sealed. They can vent gases, but they only vent pressure. They don't vent the gases from within the cell. You can't put an AGM battery on its side. You can't put it upside down. You can only have it upright. And typically, for example, a 120 ampere hour AGM battery will provide you with about 60 ampere hours of power before the voltage is too low to power anything. You can get them down to zero, but you've got really low voltage, and most of the time it won't power a fridge, etc. However, with a 120 hour lithium battery, you can lay a lithium battery on its side, have it upside down. You can do whatever you like with it because there's no fluid in it. It will give you 120 ampere hour will give you around 90 to 95% of its capacity, and it will switch off at around about 115 ampere hours, and you can see the benefits there. The other benefit is weight. An AGM battery weighs about 30 to 40 kilograms. Equivalent lithium battery weighs about 10. Huge weight saving. There's no big heavy batteries to lug around. What is the solution if I need to charge my battery? The solution is easy. Charge the battery. How do I charge the battery? Plug it in at home and charge it. But I've still got 3 days of camping to go, and I've got no charge. Aha! Now there is the question. How do I charge the battery when I'm not at home? Well, there's an easy answer and a complicated answer. The easy answer first, get a solar blanket. Throw it out into the sun. Use an extension cable to an MPPT controller and connect it to your battery. And it'll input power and sustain your battery life for the entire trip. Problem solved? Nah, not really. Well, first of all, you can use MPPT controller on any battery apart from lithium. It has to be lithium capable to power a lithium battery. So you must make sure you've got a lithium capable controller. So why do I say no, that's not the solution? Well, what happens if it's miserable, dull days every day and there's no sun? You'll get 1 amp maybe, and that might sustain you, but I doubt it. So if you're taking more than 1 amp out and you're putting 1 amp in, you can see where that's going to go. You're never going to charge anything. So what do you do if the weather's dull? Well, the answer is the complicated one, the DC to DC charging system. That will give you an option of using your alternator in the front of the car or a solar panel. You can use both, or you can use one or the other. But that gives you options when it's dull, because you can start your engine and it will charge your battery. Now, obviously, not all DC to DC chargers are equal. I'm going to put a bit of a drawing up on the screen just to show you a bit of a rough idea of how it works. Basically, we've got a cranking battery on the left. We've got a DC to DC charger with MPPT solar controller. Then we've got an earth bus bar. We've got an auxiliary battery, which is lithium. The reason I've used lithium is because lithium's the harder one to work with. We've got your fridge, and we've got a solar panel or blanket. That's on the drawing. I'll show you that now. We're going to break that down into sections. We're going to do cranking battery to the DC-DC charger. So basically what you're doing here is you're connecting a cable. Now it's got to be a cable that can carry enough current without voltage drop over the distance that you're going to run it from.
I'm sorry if the audio is slightly different. I had to correct what I said in the previous audio and add it in. What I was saying was, when you run your cable from your cranking battery through to the back, I said battery system, and what I actually meant was to your DC to DC charger. Now you can have your DC to DC charger under the bonnet if you wish, but you'll still need a fairly substantial cable to go to your battery. Now the battery itself, depending on where it's located, most people locate them in the back of their car, and you'll have a 2 or 3 meter, maybe 5 meter run to the battery. Often the battery's in a caravan or a trailer of some sort. Bear that in mind, that you need to run the correct cable. Now some DC to DC charger systems, mine is one of them, will boost up the charge, and it will hold on to the charge until it gets to the correct voltage, and then it will send it through to the battery. Now that means that if you do get some voltage drop, it will boost it up, but it means there'll be a slight delay with charge, and it might drop the charge down, it might lift the charge up a little bit, it might vary quite a lot. But some DC to DC chargers will do that. You will have to check when you buy one to make sure it does that.
You can find the voltage drop across certain cables over certain distances. Just a word of warning, a lot of big thick cables are not as heavy duty as you might think they are. You can get ripped off where you get big thick piece of insulation and hardly any cable in the middle. It looks like a big cable but actually isn't. So make sure you buy good quality copper cord cable, and then you'll be fine. If you go into an electrical store like Jackaroo, they'll tell you all about it. You connect this cable to your cranking battery, earth and power. Your power goes to a fuse immediately. The nearer you can get that to the battery, the better. You put an appropriate fuse in, and then you run the cables through your firewall and into your battery. But you don't run it to the battery, you run it to your DC to DC charger. Now let's talk about DC to DC chargers. I have a video in the past where I showed you my system, and I have a Renogy DCC50MP or something it's called. Basically it is a 50 amp DC to DC charger with MPPT solar built into it. Every battery has an input amperage. My battery is 50 amps, so I can't go over 50 amp. Now I've heard of people putting two 50 amp DC to DC chargers together to get double the current. But you've got to remember that your alternator is only 70 or 90 amp. It's not going to give you 90 amps, it's only going to give you a certain amount. So if you have 100 amps worth of controller and you've only got a 70 amp alternator, you can see where that's going. You're going to overload your alternator for a start, because it's going to try and draw more than the alternator can provide. It isn't going to provide you 100% of its power, because it's using it for powering the car, and it's using the power to charge the cranking battery too. So in many cases, putting two DC to DC chargers together is a bit pointless, in my opinion. There may be other reasons, but I don't know of them. I have a 50 amp charger. It has solar input as well, and
apologies, I've had to correct another bit. This I'm talking about DC to DC chargers output, and I'm saying ampere hours, and they're not. They're measured in amps. So it's 25 and 40 amps.
They are lithium compatible, so you must have a DC to DC charger that is lithium compatible if you're going to charge a lithium battery. I would suggest if you don't have a lithium battery, you get one anyway, because you never know when lithium batteries are going to be the norm. They're getting more and more popular all the time as the prices come down. If you get a lithium controller now and you haven't got a lithium battery, that's fine. You can set it to AGM, it won't matter. But it'll save you going out and buying another DC to DC controller when you need one. Just think about the future. think about how things might change. That's your lead acid battery. Now, we need to talk about smart alternators. Now, smart alternators is the wrong name. They're called variable voltage alternators. So don't call them smart alternators. They're not smart. There's nothing smart about them. They're an alternator that senses when your cranking battery is full, and when your cranking battery is full, they'll shut off the power and they stop charging. That's the idea. Is it saves you a little bit of fuel or a little bit of stress and strains on the engine. To me, it's a pointless exercise used by marketing people to sell vehicles, in my opinion. A lot of DC to DC chargers will come with an ignition wire. I'm told that you should fit the ignition wire. I'm also being told that you shouldn't fit the ignition wire if you don't have a smart alternator. You can do your own research on that. I haven't fitted mine. I don't see the point. On the earth connection onto the battery, there'll be a sensor. Don't connect your earth lead on the battery side of that sensor. Connect it to somewhere on the chassis. I don't know much about that. Jackaroo people, we don't have smart alternators. We don't really care. But if anybody has one, do some research, because I don't really know the answer to it, because I don't have a smart alternator. So we've got that. We've gone through the firewall. We've connected the cables, probably with an Anderson connection, onto our DC to DC charger. Most DC to DC chargers will have 3 pairs of cables. They'll have an input from the battery, which is normally yellow and black, I think. Then they'll have an input from the solar panel, which is green and black. And they'll have an output, which is red and black. So you connect your output to your auxiliary battery, and then that's it. When your engine's running, that's your charging. Now, some DC to DC chargers have got a system where they'll monitor the charge that's going into your battery. Some don't. My Renogy one is an additional cost, but I've actually got it, and it tells me what the battery is taking in the back from the DC to DC charger. The next step is the earth bus bar. Now, an earth bus bar is basically a point somewhere where all your earths go to, but you must earth everything to it. On mine, the output from the DC to DC charger, the positive wire goes to the battery, the earth wire goes to the bus bar. Then I have another wire from the bus bar to the battery. I have everything is connected to the bus bar. It's an earth black lead. So everything's a common earth. It's a common earth. It's a point where all the earths connect together. You can't do that with the power, but you can do that with the earth. Just makes things a bit neater and tidier. And it gives you a point where you can connect an earth to. The earth bus bar is basically, you can buy those from Jackaroo. They're just a strip of connections where you just put a lead on and you just tighten it up and that's it, done. The next, I use a solar blanket, not a solar panel. I used to have a folding solar panel, but they're too big and heavy, so I've got a solar blanket. I throw that out in the sun, I get the cable, and I run it into my DC to DC charger. Now, what I've done is I've run a cable from the DC to DC charger through the bodywork to a socket at the back, and I plug my blanket into there. That provides solar power to the MPPT charger built in the DC to DC charger. You cannot run the solar blanket straight to the battery without a controller. You must have a controller, because solar blankets don't produce 12 volts, they produce something like 18 to 24 volts, and any number of voltage in between. And the controller needs to get the power down to what the battery can take, especially if it's lithium. You don't want to overcharge batteries. So you can have a separate MPPT controller. You don't have to have that with the DC-DC charger. It's just easier. There's just less space to take up and what have you, and less cables. You connect your panel into that. The panel produces power when the sun shines on it, and it goes into your DC to DC charger with your MPPT controller. The controller then will take the DC to DC power from the alternator if you're running the car at the same time, and it will take the solar. But my controller will prioritize solar all the time. So if there's a choice, it'll take the solar. You don't need to go to the battery again with that, because the controller will send the power down the same leads as the alternator power. So you only need the one set of leads. From the battery, you may have your fridge. So that'll just be, I have a battery box. That provides me with 2 outputs on the top. If you have a King's battery box, the controller's on the top, input and output, so the power will go in and it can come out of the same one, but not at the same time. You can connect your DC to DC charger to one, and it will put the power into the battery, and you can have the other one powering your fridge if you want to do that. That's what I do. You plug your fridge in, your cable into your battery, and that powers your fridge. So that's a basic system. That's what we've got on the drawing there, and it is really a basic system. It's nothing more than basic. There's no variable voltage alternator cables on there or anything like that. It's just a basic system. You can have just the solar panel, the MPPT controller, and the battery with powering your fridge. Now, if you've got a basic setup and you haven't got the money to put a DC to DC charger in, the controllers can be a lot cheaper. Just make sure it does lithium, and then you can keep yourself running indefinitely as long as it's sunny. As long as there's some sun, you'll get some power, and that will start to charge up your battery at least. You'll get something into it. It might sustain you for another few days. Who knows? You don't know what the weather's going to do. That's the problem. But having an auxiliary battery and no method of charging it outside of plugging it in the wall at home, you're struggling, because once it's dead, and that's it, you're done, and you don't want that. One thing about batteries, your battery under the bonnet, your cranking battery, it turns your engine over, is designed to give a lot of power to the engine to turn it over, and then is designed to charge back up really quickly from the alternator. Your AGM or your auxiliary battery in the back is not. It's designed to give small amounts of power out constantly, and therefore it's designed to charge up small amounts of power constantly. Running an AGM battery to zero is not a good idea. You'll decrease the life of your battery. That's why you really only run an AGM battery to 50%, and you can't run a lithium battery to zero. Every lithium battery, it has a battery management system, or BMS. You'll have heard of BMS. The battery management system monitors and stops the battery being overcharged. It stops it being undercharged, and it switches it off and won't let it go to zero, because I don't know if you know, but when a lithium battery gets to zero, it won't recharge. You have to give it a spike of voltage to kick it off again. Some DC to DC chargers will have a wake up feature, whereas if your battery gets to zero, your DC to DC charger will provide a spike and kick it off again. I don't know if mine's got that, actually. I really don't know. The cat's meowing. Probably going to be sick. Usually meows like that when she's going to be sick. So your battery management system will cut off your battery. So this is why rechargeable batteries often just... Lithium battery will cut off. And that's the battery management system shutting off the power so it doesn't get down to zero. This is why you can't use the full amount, because they're hard to recharge again. Whereas an AGM battery will get down to 50% and the voltage will drop so low that your fridge has a cutoff. I don't know if you know, but most modern fridges will have 3 settings. They'll have high, medium, and low for the cutoff setting. So that means that it will allow the battery to discharge to a certain point, and once it senses the battery's at that, it will shut off. So if it's on high, it will shut off quicker. If it's on low, it'll shut off a lot later. You'll get more power out of your battery, but you're risking killing your AGM battery. Now, batteries don't have a yearly life. They'll have a guarantee for a year, because they have to do that by law. But you can ruin a battery in a month. You can't guarantee that your battery, if it says that this battery has a 5-year life, you can't guarantee your battery will last 5 years. It'll have a 5-year life on average use. It won't have a 5-year life if you abuse it and use it and discharge it and charge it and discharge it and charge it and discharge and charge it all the time. And leaving it discharged is another killer for AGM batteries. Whereas you'll get far more life. You'll maybe get 200, 300 recharges out of an AGM battery, maybe 500. You get 2,000 minimum out of a lithium. They're different technology. Now, I had a customer come in and say, my electrician told me that lithium batteries are dangerous and they explode. They're just nuclear bombs waiting to explode. That is the biggest load of horse tripe I have ever heard in my life. Lithium batteries are not that. They are. All batteries are dangerous. All batteries have power. All batteries are dangerous. The danger with an AGM battery is they can explode, they shatter, and you get acid everywhere. The danger with the lithium battery is they catch fire, and they get this thing called thermal runaway, because basically what they are just sets of 18650 batteries put in lines, in blocks. So one catches fire, it sets fire to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Once they catch fire, you can't put them out. But they don't explode. They can explode, but they don't generally. There isn't much lithium in a lithium battery. Very, very little. Most of it's cobalt. Anyway, if your lithium battery does catch fire, the best thing to do is to get it out of your car, if you can, and then be done with it. Just leave it to burn somewhere. I mean, not in the bush, obviously. You wouldn't leave it to burn in the bush, but just leave it to burn and leave it, because you can't put them out. They won't go out. But so most lithium batteries that you put in your auxiliary system now are lithium ferrous oxide. So LiFePO 4. They're basically the safest lithium battery there is. The battery management system, if it senses any heat, will shut off the power and won't let it get any hotter. Also, with your DC to DC charger, you get a black lead. That goes onto your earth connection on your battery, and that monitors the temperature of your battery, and that will shut the power off in your DC to DC charger if it gets too hot. The battery management system will protect you from the battery exploding. Now, I've had a lithium battery in my car for 2 years and never had a problem. All of these ticking time bomb rumors and things like that come from this Samsung Galaxy phones exploding in people's pockets dilemma. Well, they use a different technology for a start, or they did at the time, and the only reason that they were a problem was because people kept them in their pocket. If it was sitting on the side, you can sling it in a metal bin, put it outside, and the job will be done. But they flare up. That's the problem. So they're not really nuclear bombs waiting to explode. I'm told that they're probably safer than AGM batteries now. And they'll become the norm because they're so much lighter. Anyway, that's all I have on auxiliary battery systems and running a fridge when you're away. Another quick point is you can get these power packs, 12 amp hour, 24 amp hour, things like that. They're fine. They'll power a battery on the day. They'll power a fridge up to 60 litres for the day on the beach. But they won't do any more than that. You won't get more than a day out of a 24 amp hour battery. It all depends on how often you're opening and closing your fridge. You're better off keeping it closed, keeping drinks cold, and having an esky with ice in it to put your drinks in and get them out of there. Because when you open an esky and you close it, all you're doing is adding a bit of heat, and the ice will take it up and melt a little bit, and then you'll end up with a lot of water in the end. Whereas with a fridge, when you open it and you let heat in, and you close it again, it has to cool down, and it uses battery power to do that. Now, the better quality your fridge is, the less power it will use to do that. So in my work, we've got some reasonably good quality fridges. They run at 0.7 of an amp per hour once they're at temperature. The lesser quality fridges, 1.4 amps per hour. There's a big difference there. Over 24 hours, you multiply it up. It's quite a considerable amount, especially if you're running a 24 amp per hour system that you need to recharge every day. Now the problem with those, one of the issues that you have with those battery packs is you need two, because you need to charge one while the other one's in use. Because if you're down on camping, the only way you're going to charge it, if you don't have a battery system, which you would be running your fridge from if you did, is solar. And you can't charge it while you're using it. Well, you can, but they don't charge very quick, those battery packs. and if you're charging another one, you can use that the next day instead. Now it's all dependent on sun as well anyway, but the problem is that you're using your battery through the day, and when you want to charge it, it's night time and there's no sun, so you don't get any solar power. So you spend the next day charging it, and meanwhile your fridge is getting warm. So just bear that in mind. That's another thing you've got to think about. All right, so I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to write a comment. Please don't write comments saying, "Oh, you're wrong about this, you're wrong about that." Just be nice. I don't mind being wrong, and I don't mind being corrected. I hate it when people say, "Oh, you're wrong there," blah, 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 blah. I'll just delete your comment. I'm not interested in debating and arguing. I'm happy to have a debate on why I'm wrong and things like that, as long as it's friendly. If it gets out of hand, it'll just get deleted. So don't even bother. You're wasting your time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and please buy me a cup of coffee if you like this channel and you enjoy the content I'm making. If there's anything you need, make a comment. I'll do a video about it if I can. It's not always easy because I don't have the facilities, but if I can, I will. Once we get the subscriber base up to a reasonable amount, then they might start sending freebies out, and then we might be able to do something with, bits and pieces. But I'll do what I can. The winch pre-tensioning will be coming as soon as I can get out there, probably next week now. And that's it, really. I don't have anything more to add. If you have anything more to add it in the comments. Buy me a coffee, it'd be lovely. And thank you very much. We've only got 12 subscribers to go to 300, so that'll be great if we can get to 300, and hopefully 350, and then 400 would be great. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you in the next video.